All right, welcome back for week 8, chapter 7. And this week we're going to be doing some drawing on those canvases. If you'll notice, I put the chapter 7 video underneath the chapter reading and the chapter video so you follow along on. I think if you read the chapter or do the video, you will have a better understanding of what I'm doing. So I hope you're all reading the chapter, doing the projects, doing that, and then coming to my video for the assignment stuff. This week I'm going to do two kind of projects. Well, first, the assignments this week are normal self-test exercises, your programming project, and your quiz. We'll go over the project a little bit. But before I did that, I wanted to go over one of the programming exercises for this week, which is simply drawing this weird little cylinder. Drawing can be a little complicated and confusing, and I don't always understand exactly what some of the lines do. I just know that they go there. They're supposed to be there. So we're going to do this cylinder drawing project right here, and I'll walk you through that real quick. So the first thing we need is a new project in your IDE of choice. I'm using Visual Studio, but you can do however you like. Starting with a blank project, excuse me, and we're just going to make our HTML real quick, and it's fairly simple. You just throw up an HTML page and throw a canvas on it. Little title, and we want to add some CSS so we can style it. We just need one file. Sheet. I'll keep my same the same format that we always keep. So like I've said that this is going to be in the CSS folder, and it's going to be this. So I got to create a folder, add a new folder, call it CSS, and then inside that folder, add a new file, call it CYL, and it'll automatically open it for you. And then we need the JavaScript that will do the work. And again, I'm putting the JS folder, call it CYL as well. Same name, different extension. So that means I need to create a new folder, call it JS, and then create a file inside that folder called cyl.js. And it opens it for you. Super nice, or at least mine does. And then set the dimensions again, set the width, and the character set. And we'll make this not user scalable. I think I did this wrong. Yeah, that looks right. And then the characters. All right, then we need a body. Inside the body, we'll make one div. Give it my wrapper name. And inside that div, we'll draw the canvas. And I'll just call this canvas element. And we will make it 500 by 500. Close the canvas. And that should do it. Let's save it, save all, and see if I can open it. There it is. Nothing. We haven't styled it or put anything on it. But if you look at the source code, you can see that it's there. The canvas element is there. We put a border on it or something, and we'll be able to see it. So let's do that next. We'll do the JavaScript next. Or I'm sorry, the CSS next. And all it takes is a little bit. We'll put it in the center, text align everything to the center, so that the canvas work a little bit different than a regular div, and I don't think that the margin auto works on a canvas. You have to actually align it using the parent div and the text align feature, if that makes sense. So it's the canvas sits inside the wrapper, and inside the wrapper we text align center. We align all the text to the center, which aligns the canvas, if that makes sense. And I can show you that right here. So if we save all, and then open that back up, refresh, there it is. That's not 500 by 500. Ah, first error of the video. Save all, refresh. 500 by 500 canvas is centered. Now, if, like I was saying, if in your CSS you don't text align center, this will be set all the way to the left. And for some reason, even if you put the canvas element will center itself within the wrapper, which is only going to be as big as the elements that are in it. Anyway, I guess if you want to leave the wrapper out, you could do that and it would probably work. This is how I do it. So knock yourself out trying new stuff. I encourage that because that's how you're going to learn, trying new stuff. All right, so we have our HTML and our CSS done. So this is going to be the workhorse here, and it is going to draw our cylinders. Well, first, before we do that, on the HTML page, we have to go in here and tell it to run a function when the body loads. And here, I'll just call it draw, put your parentheses. So our first, our function that draws everything is going to be called draw. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and paste from my example in here, and I'll kind of go line by line and tell you what it does. So here is your JavaScript file, and you're going to have 3 functions in here. Your first function is going to be to draw the oval. Your second function is going to be to draw the lines. And then inside your draw function, you have several variables, and then you call this draw oval twice to draw 2 ovals, and you call the draw line twice to draw 2 lines. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. I haven't done this at all yet. So hopefully you can see my code now. I hope you were able to follow along with the CSS and the HTML. They're fairly simple. All right, so in the JavaScript, your first function is draw. You need several variables, and if you did the video from the book, you'll see this is the same stuff. First, we need a variable for the canvas, and this variable simply reaches out, grabs that element with the ID name canvas element in our HTML. That becomes our canvas element, or our canvas variable. We also use this canvas context. I don't quite understand what this does, but I know it tells it to draw in 2 dimensions. Then we need several variables for our ovals, right? We need a center, and both ovals are going to be centered one on top of the other. So the center of both ovals will be the same. So we can use one variable for that. That'll be the x on the x-axis. But there's 2 different ovals, and they're both at different heights on the y-axis. So I used oval 1 center y for my first variable for oval 1, and I set it at 50 pixels, which is going to set it down from the top 50 pixels. The second oval 2 center variable, or y variable, is going to be at 450. Since our canvas is 500 by 500, I set it down from the top 50 pixels and up from the bottom 50 pixels. They should both be the same width, so I said 250, which is half the canvas width. The height, I set at 50, so if I set it at 250, they'd both be circles, right? They'd both be circles and not ovals. That changes their dimension, but 250 by 50 is a good oval size, so that's what I use there. And these oval colors for color 1 and 2 to get it to match. If you go to the web and just type in hex HTML colors, you'll get 100 different results. Just the first one here, HTML color codes, and this allows you to pick any color in the spectrum that you can find and get that hexadecimal reference value. So this is what they're using. You see the little hashtag here. It indicates that it's a hexadecimal color instead of RGB, HSL, CMYK. This is just a hexadecimal color value for this color. And that's what we plug in for our colors in JavaScript. Use the hexadecimal colors. Make it whatever color you want. That's unimportant. I just want you to know how you do it. The canvas stroke style is this color. What is that color? Let's see. F2, F2, F2. It is a whitish color. I guess this is the background. I'm not sure where it's using that color. The contents line width is 3, and then here we call our first function. Now these functions, you have to pass them variables so that it knows how to work. So we're going to give it the canvas context, which is this 2D. We're telling it, giving it an oval center. We're giving it a y variable on the y-axis. And see, each time we call it, this time we call it for 1, this time we call it for 2. Oh, I've got this oval height. Let me change that. If you're using here we go. If you're using an IDE, there's usually a nice find and replace function. That way you can find and replace all of your mistakes at once. There we go. So we got our oval height, oval width, oval height, oval color, 1 and 2. Each time we call the draw oval variable. We're giving the canvas context a stroke style for the lines. We tell it line width is going to be 1. And then we call our draw line function. Again, we have to give it variables. We have to give it arguments. We give it the canvas context, which is 2D. The oval center, x, minus the oval width divided by 2. So that's going to put one line on the end, or let's say the left side. This is going to be the left side line, and the other one gives it a plus, so to put it on the right side line. Then we need to put that's going to be this, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around. Maybe if you didn't understand, when we do this function here, we got to give it the canvas text, and again, oval canvas text. We have to give it the center, which will be the center. We have to give it a y center, which is going to be the y. So, and here, it's called y center in this function, but it doesn't matter what, as long as the variable in this place, in the third place, when you call that function, that's what it'll be. So you can call this anything you want, and it will understand it to be the y center, and then use that in this function when you're passing those variables in. That's why the name's different, but we give it 2 different variables. The first time we call it, we give it the 1. The second time we call it, we give it the 2. And both times, it just understands it as y center and uses that number in the calculations that it does. Same thing with this draw line function. When we call it, we have to pass it the canvas context. We also have to pass the where to start the line. So line start x. And this one, the top one, the first time we call it, will be on the left side. Second time we call it, it'll be on the right side. So it's going to draw 2 lines, one on the left, one on the right. And that's their starting position. The line y is the same for both of them. So it's going to start, oh, actually it's not. Again, this is plus and this is minus. So right and left, it's going to start drawing at those x and y coordinates. And then it's going to end this is where it ends at the y. This is where it starts. No, this is starting y, ending x, ending y coordinates. I hope that makes sense. I know this is tough, but if you did the book stuff, and then this hopefully will be a good reinforcement. So we have to give it all that good stuff when we draw the lines. And then in the draw line function, again, it's accepting these arguments. We just tell it where to start and where to move to. So it's going to start at line x, y coordinates. It's going to make the line all the way until the end coordinates. So from x to y, it's going to draw that line. And then we stroke that line so we can see it. If we didn't stroke it, we couldn't see the line. Same with the draw oval function. We have to pass it this canvas context, which we did. We have to pass it the oval center, which we do. Oval center x, because it's the same for both. The y center, we're passing the variable, in the first time we call it here, we're passing it the y coordinates of the center of oval 1. The second time we call it, we're giving it the oval 2 center y-axis for this y-center variable. Then the oval width and height the same. And the fill color, the first time we call it, we're giving it color 1. Second time we call it, we're giving it color 2. And inside this function, we tell it to begin its path, move to the oval center, which is going to be the x minus the oval width divided by 2. This is the x coordinate, and this is the y coordinate. And then for the bottom half of the circle, or the bottom circle, let's say just, I don't know why, half, bottom oval and top oval. We save that. We give it, so this is just to make it pretty. We're giving it that shadow blur, the shadow offset, the shadow color. You don't necessarily need to have those in there, but that's what gives it the pretty little, I didn't save that. And this pretty fancy little shadow under here under both of those. Don't necessarily need those, but that's what it looked like in the book. Actually, no, it didn't. Did it? There's no shadow. I don't know why I put a shadow there. I guess it looked right to me. Let's get rid of that so it's not so confusing. We won't have a shadow color in here because that is confusing. All right, took out the shadow color. Now, if you look closely, and you can see there's a gray kind of stroke on the line, and then the fill color. So we stroke it and fill it, and you can put a shadow on it if you wanted to. So here we make the curve, and again, this is kind of a formula. Hopefully you can copy and paste it from the book to make the oval correct. I don't know that I could absolutely explain it without taking a lot of time, but you're going to have it's going to start drawing at X and Y. So you got your X and your Y. It's got to make it a certain width, a certain height. But this is how to draw an oval. And then we stroke that oval. And then we do a canvas context restore, which kind of tells it start over, going to draw another oval. Give it the same parameters as far as the math function, so it can figure out. It takes those variables that we gave it at the beginning, telling it to make it 250 wide by 50 high. Well, this is how it does it, this calculation, to figure out where to put it and how big it is. Then we just give it a fill color. So we assigned it a fill color that we did. It's called oval color 1, oval color 2. But that's going to be the fill color each time we call it. And then we tell it to fill it. You got to assign the color and then tell it to fill it and then tell it to stroke. And that gives you your cylinders. And in the end, it should look just like this. I hope that clears it up. Maybe it just made the water more muddy. Anyway, we'll hop into the project for this week. All right, for the project this week, it's going to be just a lot of JavaScript, a lot of code to write, and it's confusing. So I understand if there are issues, but if you have issues, let me know. If you look on the page, I gave you this file, Chapter 7 Programming Assets. When you click on it, it should start a download and give you an assets.zip folder. If you open that, you will see inside you have 3 pictures and a variables.txt document. The BMI chart is this image right here that you're going to put on your chart page, or your graph page. The female BMI is this one with the female people, and obviously the male BMI is the males. And the variables.txt, you'll see in here there are 2 variables. One is for the weight graph and one is for the height graph, and these are simply X and Y coordinates that correspond with the BMI chart, so that you know X and Y, where they start. I had to go through and figure these all out, so I think it's a lot of work. So I just did that for you. That way, when you use these coordinates in the text file, your circle should appear right where it's supposed to. Otherwise, you'd have to figure all that out yourself. So you make sure you use those assets. Mine also doesn't like to work unless I use Node.js to act as a server. So if you're having that same issue, make sure that you use Node. You see in my folder, I have that variables.txt here and a couple of other things, but I have to go and use the server.js. and start a server for it to work properly. And then go to that loopback address. So all of you should have a password page that works at this point. And it should take you into your about page. Your patient info page should work. And if it doesn't, well, you can't continue because this has to work for the rest of it to work. And right now, if you you don't have these images yet, but we need to load those up. So take the images from the zip file and go to your, this is my graph page. And this is where you're going to put you're going to style the background image using the image that I gave you, the BMI chart.png, and make it a height and a weight, height of 600, width of 800. And that way those coordinates should work properly for you. That should be the same size as the picture itself. So make sure your canvas looks like this on your HTML page with the canvas on it. The recommendations page is going to be a bit different, and so we wanted we want this document to change based on the gender of the person. So if we go to patient info and we type in Steve Rogers, we search, get his info, we go to the graph, that works. We go to recommendations, it displays the male pictures. But if we go in here, and I can't remember who all is in this database. Just pull somebody out here. Bart Simpson, Carol Danvers. Search. So we go to graph, it changes dynamically, and the recommendations page displays a body mass index. So we're going to link to that, the BMI images, male and female, in the JavaScript. And the JavaScript will put that on the HTML page. So you don't have to do this with the recommendations page. Our JavaScript is going to get funky this week. We're going to start off with a function to calculate the BMI. And let me zoom in here. The first thing we want to do is, set. Okay, I thought these are console logs, so you don't need this code here. But we want to set some variables. We want the current view height. So let's say we're looking at the patient data page. We've searched for our patient. We want to get that height value. We want to get that weight value, and we want to get the gender value from the view that we're looking at. So we're just going to grab the document get element by ID for the text height, text weight, and that drop down, and we're going to store those in some variables in our JavaScript. Then we're going to calculate the BMI. We're going to, this is the formula to calculate BMI. 703 times the current weight divided by the current weight times the current height. Current view height and current view height. Okay, so height and height, you times it by 2, and then divided 703. That's the formula. I'm not a math guy. This is the formula to calculate BMI. Apparently, it's your weight times 703 divided by your height times 2, or height times itself, height squared. And then we're going to set those in local storage. I'm going to set the current view height, current view weight, BMI, and gender in local storage. That way it transfers over to the next page when we click over. So we need those, so we know where to draw the circles. And then we're going to draw some circles. And this is a much easier way to do it than we did it in previous, where you had the ridiculous this times that multiplied, divide by 2, and all that stuff. 2 times math pi, that'll give you a circle. Ovals are a little different. 2 times math pi gives you a circle. And that is your angle in radians. So you're going to start at 0. Your first variable is the start. Second variable is the end. instead of canvas context, I just put CTX, and that's what I named it. I don't know where I did that. Did I do that all the way at the top or here? No. So right in the function. This is much easier. Begin path, make your arc, center X, center Y, radius. You need to give it a start angle and an end angle, and that will draw your circle. We give it a line width of 8. Again, that's however you like it to look. That's what the thickness of my line is 8 pixels. Give it a color and then stroke it, and that draws a circle. That draws the weight circle. So that circle will be this blue one right here. That's what draws the weight circle. And we go back and we draw the height circle, and it's kind of the same thing. I made it a different color, exact same formula, exact same variables, and that draws the height circle. And this gives you this red circle over here. Then we want to draw the BMI circle. We have 3 circles. Same stuff. Start and angle radians, math, or 2 times math.pi. Make sure you provide your variables, whatever color you want it to be. I made red and blue make purple, so that's what I did. And that gives you your purple circle right here over the BMI. Now it's taking these coordinates here. From these are the variables that I gave you, the height and weight, and we'll get to where you put those in. You're going to put these in your draw function. Remember, the draw function is the only thing that's called, but the draw function is going to call all these other functions within it, and then it's going to draw the circles, the height circle, weight circle, BMI circle, and these 2 lines. Again, instead of canvas context, I just CTX. It's much shorter. You don't have to type it out so much. It's not such a pain. But we're passing it variables, right? And then these variables come from here, and we'll see that in a minute. So drawing lines, the weight line, begin path, move to, line 2, and you may have to figure out, I don't know, you shouldn't have to figure anything out because I did all the math for you, but give it a stroke color. Again, we're drawing 2 lines, one from the weight and one from the height. Just check out, maybe play with these variables here and see how it moves, see what they mean, the X and Y. I would encourage you to do that. Well, this is the meat and potatoes right here, this draw function, because this is going to call these other functions. So we give it that constant canvas, reach out and tell it, hey, the canvas, get element by ID, this is canvas we're drawing on. That constant CTX is the canvas.getContext2D. This, in the last example, the pillar or the cylinder thing that we were doing, we called it canvas context. Well, I just shortened it to CTX. So you can call it whatever you want as long as you know what it's referencing. And then in that text file that I gave you, you will have these variables for the weight graph and the height graph. And this is just a giant list or array of X and Y coordinates, each one corresponding with a weight in that picture. So let's do this, and say, so this first variable here, weight graph, the weight graph 90, 122, well, that's going to be for this 90 right here. The 90 X, is that weight? Yeah, 90. So the X is 90, the Y is 122, and that's how the circle will draw right around that 90. If you want this 100, you need to put in the 100 and 155. That'll give you the X and Y of the 100 right here, the dead center, so that the circle will draw around that. And we're going to use these variables to draw these circles. So then we reach out and we grab those variables that we stored in local storage with the BMI function, right? So in BMI, we set some variables in local storage, height, weight, BMI, and gender. Here we're going to grab out the height, and we're going to call it H. And then here we're going to grab out the weight. But instead of just grabbing the weight, we're going to do some math on it. So we are going to grab that weight, and then we're going to divide it by 10, and then multiply it, or yeah, then multiply it by 10 and round that off. I can't remember why I had to do that. Something wasn't working otherwise. And these lines are just logging it in the console. I think I've shown you that before. But if you go to the page, this is help you figure out exactly what you're doing, because a lot of this is trial and error, man. I mean, I don't remember how to do this stuff all the time. So inspect, and you should see these numbers right here in the console. Let's see if I can zoom in and move it this way. So I've got all these things here in the console, and it helps me determine what the variables are. So H plus 8, or H and W, the variable names, are going to be not even shown here. I guess that function hasn't fired off yet. At any rate, you can see the stuff in the console. So you don't have to put these in here unless you need to figure out what's going on. But that's where your console is, and everything that's logged there will be in there. So we're going to go through the height graph variable right here. We got to count through it. So we're going to use I as a counter, and as long as I is less than the length of the height graph variable, this long variable, we're going to increment I once. And if H is equal to the height graph variable, we're looking for X. Then as soon as 8 is equal to 90 or 100, 110, okay, so that's it. Nope. 120, 130. This is the storing of X, not Y. But as soon as it finds that in the list, so let's say that's what it does. Okay, so we have to, let's say somebody weighs 122 pounds. Well, we don't have a listing for 122. We've got 120 and 130 on our graph. That is why I did this weird math round thing. And it's odd. Well, we're rounding everybody's weight. So if you add somebody new and they're 255, but we only have a 250 and a 260, well, it's not going to go in between. It's just going to land on 250. That's why I did that. I forgot. So that's why we do this weird math round thing. And then that way, when we search through this variable, we're looking for the 120, 130, and then we take this X coordinate, Y coordinate, yeah, Y, and we use that to find the where that circle needs to be drawn. We do the same thing with the weight. So I don't have to do anything with the height. But I do have to do that with the weight. That's why we did the times 10 times 10. So the weight, and that's the X variable. Y, yeah, Y is the height, X is the weight. So once we have those two variables, we can then draw some circles. So we're declaring here variable Y is going to be equal to the height graph coordinates that we found. So we'll draw a circle height and our circle weight, and then we can draw lines based on these X and Y coordinates because they're going to be the same. Remember, it starts at the circle and ends at the other circle. And then we draw our circle for our BMI. And this does these functions right here is everything we need to do for the graph page. Draw a circle, draw lines, and calculate the BMI. So you got to calculate the BMI, a circle for the weight, circle for the height, circle for the BMI, and then two lines connecting them. And that all happens when you hit the draw function, because we call the draw circle height, draw circle weight, draw lines, and the draw circle BMI. We're calling those 4 functions that we did previous to the draw function. That is all the graph. This is the recommendations function here. It's called draw box. And if we look on your HTML for your recommendations page, there should be an onload function that fires off when you load that page. So when you load that page, it's going to get a few things. It's got to get the gender that was stored in local storage. If it's a male, you're going to get the element by ID, the canvas element that you have on your canvas page or your recommendations page. And mine is Rex Canvas. And I made it 6 by 800. So if it's a male, it's going to set that attribute, and we're going to do style, comma, background image, and this is your image that I gave you for the recommendations page. It's going to be male or female. Make sure it's in the right directory. See, I got it in an images directory and then the file name at the end. If it's female, it's going to put the female image, and if it's male, it's going to put the other image up there. And then we get the BMI variable. If the BMI is less than or equal to 18.5, then I give you an X coordinate. The X is 17. That's your coordinate. I didn't give you these in the in any of the files. You may have to play with these and figure it out. But I just put a little message at the bottom of the page. So if you're underweight, and if your BMI is less than 18.5, less than or equal to 18.5%, you're going to get this message saying that you probably need to eat a few sandwiches. And you got to do that for each of the recommendations. I don't guess you have to, but so for each recommendation, like this one's normal, says you're normal. You're getting a message says that you're normal. But if you're overweight, and it says you're obese, or this one's obese. So each one gets their own little message based on the different BMIs. And you can see right here on this chart, let me zoom out. Right here in this chart, it shows you less than 18.5% is underweight. 18.5 to 24.9, you're normal, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So that gives you your, that's how you determine in your if statement who's overweight, who's underweight, who's normal. I'm trying not to make these videos so long. I know that I'm really breezing over a lot of complicated stuff, but please, if you have any questions, let me know. But so I have this if statement that delineates what category the people fall in based on that BMI that we calculated earlier and is stored in local storage. We need to make sure that if it's a male or a female, we get that gender item. If it's male or female, the background changes. And lastly, we're drawing a box on that canvas. So you need your canvas element in your CTX or your canvas context to be 2D. We give it a begin path. The global alpha, this is just, this is my transparency for those boxes that you see. And that's how you can see through them. If I didn't have that there, let's see, let me just, can I comment that? Forget how to comment. But if we didn't have this, save all, the alpha is what makes something see-through. And obviously these are my boxes without any alpha. It's a red and purple. But when you put that alpha in there, it's only a little bit, you can only see it a little bit. It's mostly see-through. You can do boxes however you want. You don't necessarily have to put a fill in it if you don't want to. This right here draws the rectangle, right? So we got an X coordinate, and that's what I put in right here. These coordinates right here, 17, 163, that's kind of the center of, or an edge, I can't remember. But that's how it knows where to put the box. Once you know where to put the box, all you have to do is plug that X in there. The Y is all the same because it's going to be a box on the same Y-axis. And maybe 150 by 400, I think, is my size, my line width, and then my stroke styles. I encourage you to play with these. These are just the colors, the hex colors that I used for my fill and my stroke to make the box the way it looks. And that's what mine looks like. You can make your box look however you want, and I encourage you again to play with it. And that is this week's lesson. I hope this video was an adequate length, but if you need me to go over something else, please let me know as soon as possible, and I can do that. Thank you very much.